Hello, my name is Kai, and today I'm going to be analyzing the Liverpool versus Stoke City game that happened behind closed doors. Now, because I own a subscription to LFC TV, which is now called All Red Video, I can watch the extended highlights, so I was able to get access to a lot of different panels for the game. Now, before I get into it, it'd be great if you guys could like the video, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and comment down below. But anyway, let's get right into the analysis. So, here we have the makings of the 3-2-5, which I keep rambling on and on about. So, here we have the three. We have the left back. In this case, this is Andrew Robertson. We have our center back and Virgil van Dijk in the sort of central position of the three, which we'd expect him to be in, and Joe Gomez a bit wider. We have our two pivot players of Trey and Yoni and Curtis Jones. It's hard to really determine who was the six this game. I think they both sort of just interchanged, and you could expect to see that against weaker opposition like Stoke. But let's go to the next panel. So here we can see Trey and Yoni on the ball. It's progressed forward, and we see the makings of the five up front. Crucially, it looks like Florian Wirtz has found himself in the left half space. The winger is holding width on the left. Salah's holding width on the right. Szoboszlai from right back, which is an interesting position from him, pushing all the way up around Darwin Núñez. When we look at the tactics board right after this sequence of panels, I'm actually going to talk about what this formation really looked like and what it could spell for Liverpool going forward. But Trey and Yoni is really developing his passing bag. I didn't really expect somebody like Trey to develop into such an intelligent passer because he's a very technical footballer. Not like insanely technical, but a very technical footballer. And he was always an okay passer, a good passer, but it's just the timing and the ability to see these very simple passes makes me now believe that Trey could really develop into an elite controller. And if he gets a little muscle about him, he could become a 6. We could develop him into a 6 long term. It's something I didn't really believe could happen, but with these young academy players, development isn't linear, so it is now pretty apparent to me that you actually could play him like that. But he gives the ball to Flo. Flo, of course, knocks it back to Darwin, who then passes it back to the left back. Robertson progresses forward, gives the ball back to Trey, who has become, again, this sort of deep-lying playmaker in this position. We still have the connected 3-2-5, although I was seeing some analysis that I think because the left back is expected to progress through the thirds as we progress forward, you're going to see situations where the 3-2-5 becomes a 2-3-5 as we get further and further up in possession. I think that's what Arne is going for, because in the final third, it's going to look more like a 2-2-6, because eventually the left back finishes the progression and allows the winger to come inside. It's very useful because it allows your right back to be a flyer and your left back to be a build-up specialist, and that allows your right back to be like a number 10, like somebody like Szoboszlai or like a box-to-box 8. The ball gets pushed forward into Florian Wirtz, who then continues to drive forward, which we knew he would be able to do. He's operating again in this sort of left half space area here. He has Dom rushing here. And one thing I was talking about in my videos was that because of how left-sided dominant we're going to be this season, Salah is going to be free. And you can see in this situation, Salah is fully free. He's off screen and alone. And it's something that we're going to see a lot next season because we're going to play so much through the left that Salah might have his most productive season of all time. You might not see it in terms of assists sometimes, but maybe he'll take more of like a Grealish-esque like hockey assist type situation where he's setting up the pre-assist for the guy who assists, which we will see later with the Curtis Jones sort of overlap with Mo Salah. But the ball comes in and Darwin ends up scoring with, again, Salah in this isolated position. But what I want to do now is actually look at the pitch and sort of talk about what we've just seen in terms of build-up. So, what we saw is that Dom went here, Núñez central, Wirtz on this side, Gomez slides over, here's your 3-2-5. I keep talking about it. I said that if we're going to have a winger here, the winger is going to hold width. In this case, that's what happens. The left back doesn't pass, it doesn't go high like a glorified winger. It's just the right back that's doing that. With the right back being able to be here with the winger inside or this. We saw this variation in this case. The winger winger is far here. The 10 here is able to drop in. The 10 here is able to drop in, and you can get a box midfield, or you can just have one of these players go further up, and the striker could drop in. This would be very good for someone like Hugo Ekitike. This is the connected structure. And then when we're building up closer, you get something like this, where it now becomes a 2-3-5 because you're more dominant in possession. And then there's a gap here where you can get an inverted run in the final third. So if we get all the way up here, after we progress through the middle third, you get situations where maybe we start overloading the left more and more, right? So players get dragged over onto this side. Salah's free. Someone like Robertson can invert in here, and you can sort of get some kind of defensive structure that vaguely looks like this. Of course, it's a little bit, more tidy than this, but you get this overlapping possibility. The winger could come inside and you can get an overlap here, but now you're getting the 2-2-6. So I think that's effectively how Slot is making this team build up. All right, so let's look at the next situation. So that was an example of just showing how we're building up. Here we can see something a bit more where the right back is overlapping as opposed to when Salah was overlapping when he was on the wide side. Trey, of course, continues to be just an incredible deep-lying playmaker and finds Dom in space. You have Mo central. You have the striker central. You have Flo here, the other winger who's just running in pursuit. You have a situation where Mo is allowed to come more inside. We didn't really see this in the Preston game. Mo is much more in a conductor role then. Here the build-up's just adjusted a little bit, because before it was the right back sort of being a part of build-up, which we saw with Connor Bradley while he was running the channel. Here it seems like Dom just immediately goes forward and holds the width or goes on the last line, which is a bit more aggressive. But I think it also, because of how we utilize the players here, the build-up structure didn't require someone like Mo to drop in as much. So he was allowed to be a little bit higher. Here we see Dom, who is very capable of being on this right-hand side, deliver a ball in, which is then scored once again by Darwin Núñez. So the reason I picked this next sequence from the game is, for number one, I don't have a lot of sequences to choose from, but also because this is more settled play, like true settled play. So I wanted to see how Liverpool kind of suffocate inferior teams who are sitting in a low block. So we see one of the center backs step in, which is Joe Gomez. Here you can notice that Andrew Robertson has made that inverted run I was talking about, where we sort of get the 6 people in front instead of just 5, because the conclusion of that left back build-up movement is to end up in the box. Joe gets the ball and he pushes it out to Mo Salah. Of course, it's Mo Salah on the wing, so you know that he's going to get the ball passed inside. He's going to play make from wide. Ball comes in. It ends up getting deflected out and picked up and recycled by Curtis Jones, one of the pivot players. You can see that the 2 pivot players are still outside the box, so you can still see that there's the semblance of a 2 that's been created. Meanwhile, we still have these 6, this massive bank of 6, the 2-2-6, the end stage of Arne Slot progression with 4 players who are meant to defend, although it's very dynamic, which we're about to see from Curtis Jones, because he's able to pass to Mo, who's able to move inside because Dom is holding width. You have him and Vert sort of in this dual 10s role, where they can both drop in to the edge of the box. You have Rio completely isolated. Robbo is just being attached to his fullback here, holding this position. You'd much rather have someone like Kirkes here, but it's fine with, again, a winger is free. We always seem to isolate one of the wingers or one of the outside players, because obviously Dom could be on that position. And Curtis, because of how fluid this is, can run into this space because he knows that Mo's going to make the right decision, which is why you can sort of create these overloads when you have intelligent enough footballers to complete passes to allow for it, to enable it. He gets the ball over to Curtis, who, of course, Curtis is a good footballer. He crosses the ball inside, and we get the Darwin Núñez hat trick. What this shows about the system is that we're not just going to be statically doing all of these movements that I was talking about. This formation isn't just, oh, Robertson has to be here in the final third. This formation is players can drop in and a pivot player can overlap. If everyone wants to come central, or if someone wants to drop into build-up like Mo did here, Curtis can become the 6th man, and this can become your pivot temporarily. Even with Verts a little bit dropped back. You can still create the 2 in midfield. You could create the 3 if you want. You can create the 2-3-5 just for a moment. It's very fluid. We're not stuck with a very static pivot and a static front line. That was mainly the point I was trying to make with that sequence. But of course, that wasn't the end of the game. We keep going and we keep seeing some good ideas. I like liked this build-up strategy a lot, because one thing I wanted to avoid is Verts dropping in to do our build-up. But what I noticed is if we're counterattacking, this is less problematic, because when we're counterattacking, Verts isn't fast. You don't need him to be the on-rushing player. Having someone like Rio holding the width here is fine. Let Verts drop in for build-up. He's a good defender too. He can win the ball deep. He gets the ball to Mo, who, if you don't know, is a very good football player. I know we have Flo, but remember we still have Mo. He passes the ball to Darwin Núñez, who is able to carry it forward with Verts, who's been able to sort of run through the right-hand side, which, yes, he's the number 10, and yes, I think Slot wants him to occupy the left half space. The reason I played him left wing was to force him into the left half space with Kirkez overlapping, but if we're replicating the same thing with a wide winger, there's not much of a difference. But here, because it's a counter-attack, players are in much more fluid positions. He's running through the right. He has Mo on this side. Verts ends up finding the sort of central position. You have Rio on the left-hand side. He finds Mo wide. Mo gets it back to Dom. We end up recycling the ball to get to Andy Robertson. In this situation, we have the 2-2-6 again, except Curtis has evacuated the pivot to push forward. So Robertson isn't allowed to go into the last line because you can't have a 2-1-7. 3 people behind the ball is a bit terrifying, but a block of 4 is what we consistently are having in this game when we're parked in their third. He gets the ball to Rio. Dom drops back, which means we go to the 2-3-5. We get this sort of arrogant play where Verts passes the ball to Jones. Jones gets it back and it goes to Rio. Rio takes a shot, deflected and in. It's not important to see where the goal is. It's just showing the sorts of fluid combinations that we're going for, how we go from counterattack play into settled play. You can sort of see the principles that Arne is going for, that there's a 3-2-5 that becomes a 2-3-5 that becomes a 2-2-6, and you get interchanges where the 2-2-6 is the end of the move, so you can get a 2-3-5 at times that forms when you try to pass back a little bit and try to find spaces. That's sort of what we're going for in the final third. We're seeing the development of Arne's tactical ideas. So here's another situation of build-up. This is now the second half, so suddenly we have a different slew of characters who are being used in build-up. Here the deepest midfielder is Endo. Endo wasn't really used as a 6 this game. He was kind of used more like Vieira, in my opinion. He was kind of used as like a ball-winning 8 in this game. But here we have him progressing the ball to Connor Bradley, who played right back, and you have Frimpong, who's your right winger. Bradley's able to carry the ball forward, passes it to Frimpong, who cuts it across, and it's failed to get converted. The reason I brought this up is because I'm focusing on a specific player, which is Frimpong. I actually don't hate the idea of Frimpong being your right winger and passing the ball back with these nice cutbacks that he's able to do, where he can just find a man in space by getting to the byline and cutting across because of how fast he is, and being the Salah backup or someone who comes on in the last 10 or 15 minutes. I don't hate it as a potential idea, with Dom becoming your starting right back and Bradley being your backup. It's definitely an idea, but it's also something that maybe Slot's just experimenting with different ideas at the moment, because he might even be looking for a way to get Sabo into the team with a new winger like a Rodrigo. I mean, there's no point in looking at the tactics board for this. This is just showing Frimpong's all-around play. I included this frame, mainly I want to look right here, because look at this press. So in this situation, just Stoke, you had Frimpong, you have all of these players ahead of the ball. Normally, we saw the 4-2-4 press. You can clearly see that this press is much more aggressive. It looks like the midfield is much more involved than in previous Slot teams, which shows, again, a movement to the Bronkhorstian sort of aggressive, intense, all-action press that was utilized in his Rangers team. So here's another example of build-up. Here, Kostas is playing as a center back, but you could imagine Van Dijk in this role. We get the ball to a center forward who drops in, which I do want to discuss as an idea, who lays the ball off into a fast winger on a counterattack in Ben Doak, and he fails to convert. So this is now a place where we can actually do some analysis. So this isn't a bad idea. You have a pivot that's created. You create a gap. You could have some situation like this. Imagine this instead of Núñez, this is Ekatike. You get the ball, and he has the world at his feet. He has all of these runners who are going ahead. Could easily find someone like Verts, who can then do the next stage of progression, could find Salah out wide. If it's a counterattack, could find Salah in behind. I like the idea that Slot is experimenting with the 9 dropping in, because it's something that Ekitike would be good at immediately, because we know his finishing and his physicality isn't immediately gonna click when he's in the Prem, but you know what is gonna immediately click? His ability to drop in and link up play. He is a connector already, so let's use what he's already good at in the short term. And I think Slot is already thinking about that. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but based on what I'm seeing, I think Slot's already thinking about it. So the reason I included this panel is because I have been able to do no analysis on Armin Pesci. I just don't watch the Hungarian league at all. I might dig up some footage if I do a video on Liverpool's goalkeepers specifically, but I really liked his parrying here because it's not the save that I'm so enthralled with. It's the fact that he parried it so far away from danger. Because a lot of goalkeepers can freaking hit the ball, you know, away, push it back, do whatever, right? But he parried it away, which to me is good innate reactions. Push ball away from net. Very good from a young goalkeeper, and I'd like to see more of him. And I'm happy that he's going on preseason tour. Some people were mad that we're bringing like 5 goalkeepers. We're bringing Woodman, Miscure, Pesci, Alisson, Mamardashvili. First of all, you need at least 4 goalkeepers to do goalkeeping drills. I remember this is a thing people used to talk about, that you need 4. I forget why, but you need at least 4, and you might as well just bring your other academy goalkeeper as well, just to learn from during the preseason tour. I think it makes sense. I think people were getting a little too aggravated about it. Here's another example of the press. I really like how aggressive and front-footed we are, because even the fullback is contributing to the press, which means, again, we're moving to the more Broncourt style system of wherever ball is, players converge based on where they are on the pitch. It's not just a rigid 4-2-4 or 4-4-2. It's more of a situational, intense, unpredictable press, which is going to be way more effective. And if we can get the right athletes and coach them in the right way, it won't be significantly more risky. So here's an example of some very terrifying buildup where we see the 6 drop in as a possibility. I'm still sort of hanging on to the potential of getting someone like Adam Morton who could drop into the last line and allow the fullback to push forward. So here we see the ball get out to the center back, who of course has to go very far wide because the DM dropped in, and of course it's Ibrahima Konate. He progresses the ball to Connor Bradley. Bradley does a quick fire off to Jeremy Frimpong, who's in space. Frimpong, because he's electric, runs. He keeps running. He gets the ball in behind. And of course, one thing I'm really looking forward to is Frimpong's ability to get to the byline and cross. I think if he's at right back, he can do the same thing. I think the right winger versus right back positions in this Arne Slot team are not going to be that different offensively. They just have a different defensive responsibility. You could easily see Frimpong overlapping, and this being someone like Salah instead of Luka. And unlike Luka, Salah probably slots that home. So I am curious to see Frimpong being used in this sort of role, because it seems like our right back doesn't really have to defend in a settled way. It just seems like they will have to defend in transitions. What I mean by that is, like, the moment we have possession, the right back is allowed to go forward. They don't have to build up through the phases. Another example of build-up where we see a midfielder sort of drop in, and again, Kirkez is in this more reserved role, so we have, and I haven't said it today, but I'm going to say it now, the Barisic-Tavernier relationship. In this case, the right back, which is Bradley, goes into the inverted position. Frimpong, of course, is electric. He passes into Bradley and then runs past. Luka's sort of playing the 10 here, which I think is mental. He gets the ball to Cody Gakpo, which again, Frimpong is going to be a terrifying prospect. If he has the ability to go here or across goal there, we have a monster on our hands. He is definitely going to get a lot of assists in this team. Completely insane athlete. We didn't really get to see how good he was in the Preston game because it was a bit of a weak center back partnership behind him. To be honest, Tsimikas was a much better center back than Robertson was. He at least gave me comfort in possession, which Robertson didn't. And having a real center back in Ibu instead of a young one like Nalo definitely gave some of the players a lot more confidence to play. He gets the ball out to Cody Gakpo, passes it across to Federico Chiesa, who scores. So let's just look at the pitch one last time and just talk about a few things. I think that we're approaching the tactics that Arne Slot wants to play. I think the personnel isn't quite nailed down. I think he's still experimenting with who he wants to put where. When you sign versatile footballers, you get a wide array of solutions that we could potentially use, but I think eventually he has to settle on a core 11 players that would go in his best team, and I think we will eventually see that, maybe against Milan, maybe Maybe later, we still have signings to make and sales to complete, but I think that's the idea. I do think we're going with this 3-2-5 in our third, 2-3-5 in the middle third, 2-2-6 in the final third, with the potential of a player dropping into midfield to create new opportunities or create new passing lanes. I think that's ultimately what Slot's going for, based on the games that I've seen and how the buildup has evolved in each game. So that is it for me in this video. If you liked the video, subscribe, comment down below, and follow me on Twitter. I'm going to have a video on the Ekitike Here We Go at some time tomorrow, not today. I'm mostly waiting for a David Ornstein confirmation. I don't just like to go off of Fabrizio. I'd like to see an Ornstein confirmation. I'm going to have another extra time out this week on Wednesday. I'm going to have a video on Rob Page out either tomorrow or the day after, probably more likely to be the day after because of the Ekitike Here We Go. And as always, thanks for watching.